At 11:51 p.m., my phone lit up the way truth slices through the dark. Sharp, unforgiving. A text from my mother sat on the screen like a verdict. "We've discussed it. You're no longer part of this family. Don't show up to gatherings." No hesitation, no wavering, just digital banishment. A few seconds later, my sister tapped a heart on the message as if betrayal was something to cheer for. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I simply opened my laptop, pulled up every auto payment I'd ever set for them, and began hitting cancel one tab at a time. By 12:03 a.m., their perfect little world started flickering like a dying light bulb. Before I tell you what came after, tell me, where are you listening from? Just so I know I'm not the only one who's ever had to turn off the lights on their own blood. When the screen finally dimmed, the quiet in my apartment felt heavier than anything the city outside could offer. The fridge hummed low, the wall clock ticked like it was counting my choices, and everything around me felt like it was watching. My hand rested on the keyboard, steady, even while my heartbeat wasn't. My anger wasn't loud anymore. It had refined itself into something sharp, exact. I realized that for years, I'd been the unofficial investor in my family's curated life. The mortgage that never defaulted? Because of me. The car insurance that magically renewed? Me again. Every overdue bill, every tearful request for help, every "it's just for this month, sweetheart," I had covered it. I kept telling myself it was love, duty, the right thing, but staring at the canceled payments, I saw it clearly. It had been a subscription service, and I was the only one paying. I scanned the room. Everything in my apartment was neatly arranged, labeled, color-coded, my coping system. Growing up in chaos had taught me to build order out of anything. But tonight, that order felt like evidence of how thoroughly I'd been trained. Every receipt, every organized file was a reminder of how much I had taken on that never belonged to me. I used to think love meant endurance, that if I kept giving, kept bending, one day they'd recognize my worth. My mother had fed me guilt the way some mothers serve comfort food. Kayla, my sister, lived her life on a cushion of other people's labor. My dad floated through the household untouched, pretending if he didn't get involved, he couldn't be blamed. I learned to prevent explosions. They learned to let me clean their messes. I remembered the first time I paid their property tax. They were on the brink of foreclosure, voices trembling, desperation dripping through the phone. I was only 26, drowning in my own bills, but I wired the money without a second thought. Mom called me her guardian angel. I believed her. Then came the utilities, the car payments, Kayla's tuition, $18,000 a year for 3 years straight. Angels don't get paid in heaven, I guess. They get invoices in hell. I rubbed my eyes, trying to find shame, but all I felt was clarity. This wasn't an emotional collapse. It was a ledger finally coming into focus. I wasn't losing a family. I was tallying up a lifetime of unnoticed labor. The last time I'd been in the same room with them was at a Sunday dinner 6 months earlier. Mom corrected my posture in front of everyone. Kayla bragged about her business trip, which was actually a vacation I'd secretly covered the year before. Dad joked loudly about how no man would want someone as serious as me. I'd swallowed the words the way I always did. Looking back, that table had already been a courtroom. I just hadn't known I was the defendant. Now, sitting in the blue glow of my laptop, I opened a blank spreadsheet. Date, amount, purpose, proof. My fingers didn't hesitate. Each line was a memory turned factual. Each calculation was a quiet reclamation of my dignity. Outside, the city lights flickered like a code. Somewhere across the bridges, my family slept peacefully, thinking their exile of me was final. They didn't know I'd only just begun. By morning, my phone looked like a museum of panic. Missed calls from Mom, Dad, Kayla. Each name felt like a relic from a past life. I didn't pick up a single one. Silence felt heavier now. It felt like evidence. The first message wasn't even from my mother. It was Kayla. "You're overreacting. Mom didn't mean it like that. Can we talk?" Talk. As if that word hadn't been twisted and weaponized for years. I read it twice, noticing the same thing. No regret, no accountability, just manipulation dressed as concern. I deleted it without replying. I returned to my spreadsheet. Every line was a truth I'd swallowed. The day I paid Kayla's tuition, the overdraft fee when Dad borrowed my card for just gas, and I skipped rent that same month to keep their house from being seized. Every dollar had a story, and every story ended with me patching a hole someone else had made. At 9 a.m., my mother finally sent an email. No hello, no softness, just a command. "We need to talk about what you've done. You've caused a disaster. Call us immediately." Not a single mention of her midnight exile message, not a single acknowledgement of the line she crossed. Once again, she expected me to resume my position, fixer, buffer, silent shield. But this time, the role didn't fit. I wrote back, "I'm busy reconciling accounts. You should start doing the same." Then hit send. The phone rang instantly. I let it buzz, watched it vibrate across the table, and let it fall quiet. By noon, their panic had a tone. A message from Dad. "What's happening with the utilities? Your mother is furious." And one from Kayla. "You're being dramatic. You're destroying everything." Destroying everything. As though peace was my responsibility, not their decency. I opened my banking app, scrolling through years of transactions, and something inside me shifted. The guilt in my bones began to dissolve. This wasn't an emotional collapse. It was a ledger finally coming into focus. I wasn't losing a family. I was tallying up a lifetime of unnoticed labor. The last time I'd been in the same room with them was at a Sunday dinner 6 months earlier. Mom corrected my posture in front of everyone. Kayla bragged about her business trip, which was actually a vacation I'd secretly covered the year before. Dad joked loudly about how no man would want someone as serious as me. I'd swallowed the words the way I always did. Looking back, that table had already been a courtroom. I just hadn't known I was the defendant. Now, sitting in the blue glow of my laptop, I opened a blank spreadsheet. Date, amount, purpose, proof. My fingers didn't hesitate. Each line was a memory turned factual. Each calculation was a quiet reclamation of my dignity. Outside, the city lights flickered like a code. Somewhere across the bridges, my family slept peacefully, thinking their exile of me was final. They didn't know I'd only just begun. By the second night, the quiet in my apartment had a rhythm, the kind of stillness that builds before lightning meets ground. My laptop glowed, each open tab a window into years of unpaid gratitude. Mortgage, tuition, insurance, taxes. They'd built their comfort on my silence, and I was done paying for peace that cost me everything. At 11:40 p.m., Julia called. "Everything in place?" "Every receipt, every transfer," I said. "Good. Then you're not asking for repayment, Sophia. You're enforcing it." She walked me through the structure of the email. Direct, calm, unshakable. Subject: outstanding balances, Johnson family account. Body: this message serves as formal notice of reimbursement owed. You have 30 days to establish a repayment plan before legal action is initiated. No emotion, no accusations. Just the truth translated into business. When I hit send, the silence afterward wasn't empty. It was electrified. 12 minutes later, the responses came in rapid fire. Dad: let's be reasonable. Mom: how could you turn on us like this? Kayla: you're insane. You're destroying the family. I stared at their words with a strange calm. None of them were horrified by what they'd taken. They were horrified that I had stopped allowing it. At 12:03 a.m., my phone lit up like a crime scene. Missed calls, screaming voicemails, desperate texts. "Turn the lights back on," Mom pleaded in one message, voice breaking. "We can fix this tomorrow." But tomorrow had already begun, and for the first time, they were the ones stumbling in the dark. Seconds later, an email from Julia appeared. Perfect. Forward it all. Demand letter goes out in the morning. I leaned back, watching the cursor blink next to my name. Sophia Johnson. It hit me how many times I'd signed that name to save them. On checks, leases, contracts. Every signature had been a promise. Tonight it became evidence. At one hen's row, another message from Kayla. "You think this makes you strong? You're heartless." Heartless. The word used to hurt. Now it felt accurate, necessary. My compassion had been a luxury they'd overdrafted for years. I poured water into a glass, my hands steady for the first time in months. This wasn't revenge, it was accounting. Before logging off, I opened one last tab, the property deed. Their house, the one they bragged about finally owning, was still under my name. I'd never transferred the title, out of caution, out of instinct. Now that instinct was power. By dawn, Julia had sent the first draft of the legal notice for me to review. She ended it with one line that made me smile. "They said you were out of the family. Let's make it official." Outside, the streetlights flickered off as morning broke. Inside, my laptop glowed with a different kind of sunrise. The kind made of facts, numbers, and quiet retribution. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel small or forgotten. I felt precise. The morning the letters went out, the world looked normal. Coffee shops opening, traffic humming, sunlight crawling up the blinds. But inside my apartment, it felt like waiting for a verdict. Julia had sent the demand package to each of them by certified mail and email. Every receipt, every dollar, every signature attached. At 9:12 a.m., my phone buzzed. Dad. He never called first. "Sweetheart," he began, that rehearsed softness coating every syllable. "This is getting out of hand. Let's keep this private." I let the silence stretch until he faltered. "It's already private," I said. "It's just, finally, documented." He inhaled sharply. "You're making your mother sick." "No," I said, voice steady. "She made herself sick. I just stopped paying for the medicine." Click. By noon, Mom's post hit Facebook. A wall of self-pity wrapped in scripture. "We raised her with love, and now she's turned against her own family for money. Pride comes before destruction." Underneath, Aunt Gina commented, "First, disgusting behavior. I'd be ashamed." Then, for the first time in years, other names appeared. Cousins, uncles, people I barely spoke to. "Wait, didn't she cover your house after foreclosure? Isn't that the tuition girl?" The threads split open. Their story cracked. At 1:46 p.m., an email arrived from Julia. Subject: Additional discovery. Attached was a PDF, screenshots, bank records. Julia's note read, confirming, inheritance withdrawal, $40,000. Signature mismatch. Forgery likely. I read it 3 times. The remodel, the new kitchen, the timeline aligned perfectly. My mother hadn't just drained my bank account, she'd stolen my grandmother's trust fund and signed my name to do it. By evening, Julia had already filed an injunction. The court froze their assets before dinner. That night, my parents tried every channel, emails, texts, voicemails, all looping the same refrain. "It was a misunderstanding. We'll pay you back. Don't ruin the family." The irony made me laugh out loud. At 8:32 p.m., the buzzer rang through the peephole. My mother, eyes red, clutching an envelope. "Sophia," she whispered, "please, we're losing everything. Do something for your sister." "For Kayla?" I asked. Her lips trembled. "She's still your sister." I opened the door just enough to hand her the paper, already waiting on my table.
a copy of the eviction notice Julia had filed that morning. "You'll get the official copy in 7 days," I said, her face drained of color. "You wouldn't?" "I already did." She stared at me, searching for the old version of her daughter, the one who fixed, forgave, funded. That version was gone. "Goodbye, Mom," I said, and closed the door. I didn't watch her leave. I just stood in the quiet, breathing in the end of an era. By the next afternoon, chaos unfolded like clockwork. The utilities disconnected, the mortgage notice hit their inbox. Julia forwarded confirmation, title, secured, eviction approved, probate court notified. Then came the storm online. Another post from Mom. "She's suing her parents. We're heartbroken." This time the replies weren't sympathy. Aunt Meredith, quiet, factual, typed one line. "You mean the mistake where she forged her signature?" The thread went dead. Hours later, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number, New York area code. "This is Amy Patel from the Patterson and Lowe probate office," the voice said. "We're handling your late grandmother's estate. We found discrepancies in the beneficiary list." I gripped the counter. "Discrepancies?" "Yes, Miss Johnson. It appears your name was crossed out and replaced. The signature doesn't match. The remodel? The marble counters? Every puzzle piece slid into place." "Thank you," I said. "Please send everything to my attorney." By midnight, Julia confirmed the filing inheritance fraud. Another freeze, another layer of truth. In the following days, the story spread quietly through the family. One by one, relatives reached out, cousins I hadn't heard from in years. They borrowed from us too. They never paid anyone back. "You're not crazy, Sophia." Every message was a small rescue boat in a flood I'd been drowning in for years. When the official court notice arrived, Julia called. "They'll try to contact you again," she warned. "Don't engage. Even if they apologize." She paused. "Especially if they apologize." The next morning, my inbox exploded again. Mom's new tactic was remorse. "We forgive you. Please forgive us." Forgiveness as leverage. The oldest trick. I forwarded the email to Julia and archived the thread. By the end of the week, the house was no longer theirs. The deed still under my name. Sold within days. Julia wired the proceeds to my account.
Watching the confirmation line appear felt nothing like revenge. It felt like balance. Kayla tried once more, a final text. "You won." I typed back, "No one wins when family becomes debt," then muted her number for good. That night, the city outside flickered steady and different. I sat by the window, the same one that had once reflected every sleepless night I spent saving them. Now it reflected something new. Me, alone, but unburdened. Somewhere out there, they were learning how to live without me, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty for letting them. By the time the court finalized everything, weeks had passed in a strange, quiet rhythm. Julia sent me a short email. "Case resolved. Repayment agreement signed. Probate reversed. You're clear." Clear. The word felt foreign. Their accounts were frozen and their house sold. Their debts legally tied to their own names for once. The silence that used to haunt me had turned into peace. I no longer woke to emergency calls or just one more favor. My mornings were mine again. I bought a small apartment downtown. Nothing grand, just clean walls, sunlight, and no ghosts. Evan helped me move in. He didn't say much, just handed me a cup of coffee and smiled like he understood what freedom tasted like. The first night there, I opened my old spreadsheet, the one where I'd once tracked every dollar I'd spent on them. I stared at the numbers for a long time, then hit delete. Watching it vanish didn't feel like loss. It felt like release. Word got around that my parents were renting a small house outside the city. Kayla was working part-time,
somewhere she hated. I didn't feel satisfaction, just distance. They were finally living the life they'd built without me, holding it up. That night, for the first time in years, I slept through till morning. No guilt, no noise, just the steady, quiet hum of a life that finally belonged to me. A month later, I visited my grandmother's grave. I laid down tulips, her favorite, and whispered, "It's done." The wind felt like an answer. Peace isn't loud. It's quiet, steady, earned. If you've ever had to walk away from the people who broke you, you know this. You're not alone, and you're not cruel for choosing peace. If this story hit home, explore the Family Betrayal playlist for more true stories like mine. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the bell so you never miss the next chapter.